Welcome to Creepy Chronicles. We bring you 5 short stories with endings that will leave you watching the shadows. Ready? Let's begin. A writer searching for solitude rented a small, old cabin on the coast. The nearest town was miles away, but the view of the lighthouse across the bay was worth the isolation. Every night, the lighthouse beam swept over the water and briefly illuminated his cabin. The rhythmic pulse was almost comforting. Until one night, the beam stopped moving. It fixed itself directly on his cabin. Annoyed, he tried to sleep, but the light was blinding. He stumbled to the window, ready to call and complain. But as he peered outside, he noticed something horrifying. Silhouetted in the beam of light was a figure standing by his window, staring at him. The beam finally moved away, plunging him into darkness. And in that darkness, something whispered from the corner of his room, "I see you." A thrill-seeker heard rumors of an abandoned carnival hidden deep within the woods. Urban legend said it closed down after a series of mysterious disappearances, but he couldn't resist the lure of photographing the eerie attractions. The crumbling rides creaked in the wind, the rusted frames groaning like dying animals. The funhouse, though faded and broken, seemed almost intact. As he entered, distorted mirrors warped his reflection into grotesque shapes. But then, one mirror didn't distort him at all. His reflection looked perfectly normal. Too normal. It smiled, even though he wasn't smiling. Then it stepped out of the mirror. He ran, stumbling through the darkness, until he found himself outside, gasping for air. But the forest wasn't the same. The trees twisted unnaturally, and the carnival lights glowed brighter than ever. He was no longer outside. He was inside the mirror. On a cross-country road trip, a traveler's car broke down in the middle of nowhere. His phone had no signal, and the night was closing in fast. Just as panic began to set in, he spotted a flickering neon sign. In the distance, the lonely motel. The place was run down, but the receptionist, an older woman with blank eyes and a frozen smile, handed him a key with no questions asked. Room 13. Exhausted, he entered the room, collapsing onto the bed without even turning on the lights. It wasn't until the middle of the night when he awoke to a freezing chill and the sound of breathing. The darkness was absolute, and his phone was dead. He stumbled toward the bathroom, desperate to find a light switch. When he flipped it on, the mirror revealed what the darkness had been hiding. Someone was lying beside him on the bed, their twisted face smiling directly at his reflection. An insomniac with a love for late-night walks stumbled across an old railway track he'd never noticed before. Curiosity led him to follow it, his feet crunching over gravel as the silence of the night swallowed him whole. The air felt colder here, heavier. A distant whistle echoed through the darkness, followed by the low rumble of a train. But the tracks were said to be abandoned for decades. Yet headlights cut through the fog, and an ancient-looking train slowly rolled to a stop before him, and the doors creaked open, and inside, dim, yellow lights flickered. Empty seats stretched endlessly down the aisle. Against his better judgment, he stepped on board, his curiosity overwhelming his fear. As he walked through the train, he noticed framed photographs lining the walls. Photos of people sitting in the exact seats he was passing. All of them looked terrified. When he reached the end of the train, he glanced at the final photo. His own horrified face stared back at him. A photographer set out to capture the beauty of an old radio tower deep in the wilderness. The hike was brutal, but the allure of untouched landscapes kept him going. He reached the tower just as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The structure was a rusted relic, towering over the treetops, with its antennas creaking in the wind. He decided to camp nearby for the night. His tent was set up, and he was reviewing his photos when his radio crackled to life. Static, followed by faint, distorted voices. He assumed it was interference from the old tower. Curious, he tuned the frequency, trying to make sense of the words. The voices were jumbled, whispers, twisted into something almost intelligible. Then a chilling phrase broke through the static. "You shouldn't be here." His heart pounded, but he forced himself to ignore it, assuming it was a prank. He turned off the radio and tried to sleep. Morning arrived with a thick fog blanketing the forest. As he packed up his gear, he noticed something deeply unsettling. Every single photo he took of the tower was blurred, except for one. The last photo he snapped the night before clearly showed a figure standing at the top of the tower, gazing directly at him. Which story got under your skin? Let us know in the comments, if you're still here. And remember, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications, because some stories have a way of finding you again. Sleep well, if you can.